So this is a mock interview for an engineering manager role at Uber. I'll be speaking with Raghu today about himself and who he is as an engineering manager and what's important to him, and one or two projects that he's led and how he approaches managing and leading other engineers. So thanks for joining, Raghu. Really appreciate your time. Um, why don't you go ahead and tell me about yourself?
Hey Josh, nice to meet you. Thanks for
You as
having me.
well. Yeah.
Uh, I'm Raghu. I'm an engineering manager. I spent over 10 years as an engineering manager with the big, large companies. I have had the opportunity to, start uh, and like be a founder member for large multiple engineering teams. I've grown global teams across London and India, and yeah, I've been very successful at hiring and growing teams and landing a lot of impact through delivering large bets for the organizations I've worked with.
Fantastic. Um, Tell me about a time that you resolved a conflict.
Okay. So this was a time when we were doing this project at Amazon, where there were multiple or entire Amazon was actually involved in something called Redshift, which is basically deprecating Oracle databases and moving to Amazon's internal tech stack using either DynamoDB or using the relational database service. Uh, and obviously, all teams were frantically trying to get to their goals of being able to do this. Now, so one of the things which happened at the time was we realized we had to make changes to one of our services. We almost had to rewrite it because the way it was implemented was, uh, if it was an Oracle database, it was allowed to store some of the PII data, which is the secure data. But if we have to move out, we would have had to build another solution. Now, the main conflict there was that uh, we realized very quickly that that's not even or we shouldn't even be storing that. We were not the source of truth for that data, and that data should reside in some other system. uh, Now, obviously, when we approached that team that owned that data or should be owning that data, they were challenged with their own timelines, and they did not have the bandwidth to make these changes. So what uh, we had a couple of meetings. We did not end up with any solution. So one of the ways which I thought at the back at the time is that the engineer who owned this project from my team was on a career path to the next level, or was kind of ready to go to the next level, and needed an opportunity to kind of showcase or demonstrate those next level behaviors. So I kind of created a plan where we would do some of the initial work, which would just set a platform for moving this data into the upstream team. And we will, just store the metadata about that particular data and create this service endpoints for them to use later. uh, next went to them with this approach. uh, they still would have had to do a little bit of work. It wasn't going to be much for them, which would kind of delay them in their own work. And that was the way forward to kind of solve this situation. The engineer did the work. It was a bit of a win-win for everyone. The manager of the other team decided to give a good feedback for the engineer on my team, who got promoted, and we all kind of were able to complete the project on time.
That sounds like that was a difficult or challenging situation. What was your specific role in this situation?
My specific role was working with the engineer from my team to come up with a solution for this problem. There was, or we had to make sure that we could not complete this project without moving out some of the PII data. And if it had to go in and sit in some other team, it the logical team or the logical owners for that data did not have the bandwidth. So I had to kind of mediate with the engineers and the engineering manager of that team, along with the engineer on my team, and come up with a solution that works for everyone. And then once we cross this obstacle and go live with the Redshift project, we would then work with the upstream team again to make sure we have a different milestone where we migrate off that service completely, and they are able to kind of stand up their service which would vend us the data.
What would you say was the impact of this project, or maybe better said, what would happen if nothing were done, if you didn't lead through this?
I don't think that was an option because
Mm,
the other options were stay with Oracle, which was not an option.
mhm.
Uh, continue storing the PII data, which was again not an option because DynamoDB does not allow secure, or at least back then did not allow us to store that data securely. And it had to be migrated off, and the upstream team would have to build and launch a new service, which was the right thing to do. But we kind of just helped them to come up with a solution in the intermediate that would work, where we stored an metadata. We temporarily created a service that would store the data on their side, and we were the only client for that period, and then they would kind of expand it to other clients.
So, what was the impact of the business by achieving this project?
So the Redshift project was a project that was came straight from the S team at Amazon, which is like the very top senior leadership at Amazon. So
Mm,
it was again not negotiable in any way, either in terms of the timelines or the solution. So
mm.
if we hadn't done this, there was no material benefit to any of the business teams across Amazon for people doing this project, but it had a much bigger impact with the fact that we would be saving probably hundreds of millions of dollars by using our own technology.
So, cost savings by using Amazon technology
Yeah,
for storing this sensitive data. Got it. Or at least disambiguating the sensitive data. It sounds like.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Let's take a turn. Let's take a shift
Okay.
towards a slightly different topic. What would you say is a product that you're most proud of?
Product that I'm most proud of. Okay. Um, I can tell about an accounting close platform that I developed. I was one of the first, and I'm proud of it for uh, multiple reasons. This was a ground up new product, which was which became the central tool of choice for the company I was working in to complete all the financial close activity for that company. This was not only a ground up new product, this was also a team that I developed, basically hired and grew as part of this team that I started. So I started a new team. I hired a lot of good engineers who went on to do very successful things for the product, as well as I was also I was able to deprecate a lot of legacy systems. I was able to stand up this tool to become the single unified tool for performing financial close automation.
So, okay, so it was a ground up product, and so what would you say was your the highlight of that project for you? What made you the most proud?
uh, the fact that it was a big platform. There were four different modules in it, and it was a huge product. And at the same time, it was very stable from its very go. We had only maybe 40 or 50 people who used the product at launch. It went on to have like more than 500 users within a year or two. And at the same time, it was one of those rare products that never got any what we call severe incidents or high priority tasks that kind of blocked users. It was extremely stable in terms of quality. And that kind of led to a lot of adoption of the tool. And we kept on adding a lot of big features, and yet it always seemed to work scalably without going down or having any kind of product issues.
Mm, that sounds interesting. Tell me about a decision or a trade-off you had to make in that project.
uh, I think one of the decisions was, once we started getting a lot of adoption, what I realized is, one of the modules had a backend engine, which we realized is not going to scale. Now we had an option to go back to the users and say we need to kind of rebuild the internals of that engine to kind of make sure it scales for all the quick adoption that's happening. From like few hundred cards, we would be going to thousands of cards if in less than 6 months. So one of the decisions I took was, we stopped a new feature that we were developing to prioritize rebuilding this engine. And we did it in a way where we did not want the users to come back and do all these long UATs. We created a service that would compare the before and after in a very easy way for engineers to kind of just work with it. And we kind of created reporting that would go out and show that the new code did exactly what the new old code would have done, except that it is now far more scalable. So with that, what happened is, we were able to scale for the year end, because the year end close is always the most critical for a company. And we went live with this new feature, sorry, rewriting the uh, engine. And it scaled, and we did not have any other problem. Now we did not have a new feature which came later in Q1, but that feature was not would not have soured the experience of year-end close as such.
Okay, thank you. Um, let's go in another direction.
Sure.
Appreciate you sharing these stories. I think these are great. Um, Getting to know you a little better. Let's see. So let's talk about technical debt.
Okay.
As a product team, technical debt is always a trade-off.
Yep.
What are your views on technical debt, generally speaking, and maybe even tell me about a time where you had to work with some, write down some technical debt. But I'm curious to hear your general thoughts about technical debt.
Sure. So I think I gave an example where I think we kind of built a system that did not have technical debt,
Hmm.
or which kind of did not ever lead to a situation with a tech debt. So that's the highlight of my career in terms of building that kind of a product. But I would also say that that's because I had a lot of experience getting hurt with technical debt in the past. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so there were a lot of lessons learned on what not to do, which I think I was successful in this new project. But going back to your question, Josh, so uh, I had teams that I have kind of joined, or products that I've inherited that had a lot of tech debt. And the things are, uh, or my observation is, we always tend to either uh, talk too much into the future, that, oh, this is, if we need to kind of fix this, we probably need to rebuild the whole thing, or we need to kind of have a 2 year engineering plan to kind of rewrite the product, or something like that. But I can give some example where one of the teams that I was leading did have a lot of tech debt as such, because it was written years ago when the team was much smaller, the product was much smaller. It wasn't
Hmm.
processing the kind of billions of dollars that it was processing at that time. So uh, there were few tiny steps that think I had my team take on a continuous basis.
Hmm.
Uh, a Just improve the overall instrumentation in the code and start gathering metrics. Which means to say that, do we even know what's working well and what's not? And if something is not working well, probably, can we get more insights on a week to week basis?
Mm.
So one or two of the sprints, I had my team purely work on, adding more instrumentation and kind of
Hmm.
generating the metrics that would go into our alerting and monitoring tool, and start looking at this on a more constant per week basis. Because if I had to go to my leadership and talk about the weekly operational metrics, we did not even have enough of that. So with that in mind, it was a steady progress made in terms of just collecting the metrics and reviewing them internally as a team every week, when the on call would kind of uh, hand off the operations to the next engineer. But one of the things we started seeing is there were a lot of things, or a lot of uh, uh, misconceptions we had about our own product. We
Mm.
used to have a website, and we thought that's where everyone comes and create these agreements. But what we realized is more than 70% of the agreements in our system are created by an upstream team calling our APIs. They never
Mm.
come to the website. So editing an agreement is what was done mostly on our website, never much of creation.
Mm.
So we built all this kind of metrics continuously, and it led to something much more impactful. It helped us to identify where even we should focus. What are the things that we should invest on? Where if we need to kind of move, say, from batch based system to event based system, that gives us much more scalability. Uh, which parts of which batch programs are really not scaling? Which programs take how long? So as we kind of generated these metrics, it kind of led to a very steady state about which things we could prioritize, that slowly we could rewrite, we could keep it in a shadow mode for a long enough time where it's just comparing the results, and it's not trying to do anything in production immediately, or just using web labs or A B testing, where we would slowly dial up these things, make sure it works, and then comes back. And in about 1.5 to 2 years, I think we were able to rewrite a lot of the stuff without feeling the pain of big bang launches. So
Interesting.
yeah, technical debt is, uh, I don't think there's a magic wand that will ever take away all the technical debt.
Nope.
It's always very step by step, very
Yeah.
gradual. But if you keep doing it, it almost has this cascading impact where it would have created a lot of free bandwidth by fixing one small thing, and then the cumulative
Mhm.
effect is what I feel kind of lands up uh, us at a stage where we are now ready for much bigger things.
Yeah, I see it as similar to borrowing money as an investment in a business, right?
Yeah.
But you borrow to grow, and then you have to pay it back. Um, yeah, yeah. You mentioned it sounded like you mentioned a trade-off between batch and event processing.
Yeah.
Was that a call that you made? And if so, why did you make that call? What was the what drove the decision?
So I wouldn't say I made the decision. It was, or I mean, I identified the need for that decision either. It was much more
Mm,
bottom up, where one of the engineers actually was able to find out a lot of the problems we are having, and engineers face the brunt of the operations that they are supporting, right? So,
yeah.
which is where this was actually to the engineers' credit that they brought this up. They also worked on a technical design doc that they got it reviewed through a lot of very senior engineers in the organization, and they went ahead and implemented it, and that actually was a pretty good success. It wasn't again immediate. I would say it took several months as we did this, but uh, it was a multi-million dollar savings in revenue that or revenue that we otherwise were losing, which we hadn't realized. And it
Mm.
was recovery of all those millions of dollars of recovery by just changing something to batch based to event based. It was a way where you know it wasn't just the kind of methodology from batch to event. There were a lot of other dashboards and a lot of other metrics that we generated. It was a complete overhauling of how we
Mm.
process certain type of agreements, which kind of led us to the all these discoveries about us losing so much of revenue.
It was more of a refactoring then,
It was more
right?
of a refactoring. It wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
totally.
Yeah. That's trying to. I would say, okay. How did you? I'll put this in the question. How did you handle balancing, let's say, new features or whole new products with the refactoring products happening? Likely, I would imagine happening simultaneously. How did you handle that?
So I think once we were able to establish how much revenue we are potentially losing through a non-scalable system, it wasn't that difficult of a sell to just say
Mm,
that this needs refactoring. So we had a monetary value attached to refactoring this. So it didn't look like a pure engineering project. There was a lot of interest in on our business teams as well, and
okay.
so in that sense, and it kind of exceeded the expectations in terms of how much uh, how much revenue we were otherwise losing. Is if it's like almost double digit $1 million revenue, it's not trivial.
So the decision was an easy-ish one.
It
Yeah.
was, yeah,
Yeah.
because I think, and again, the platform that we set with trying to generate a lot of metrics kind of enabled a lot of these kind of decisions, where it was easy to sell that, hey, we are in a system. If we had gone cribbing to our business saying, hey, our systems don't scale,
Mm.
probably they wouldn't be as invested in it. Like it was our job to probably develop good systems. But if because the cost of not having scalable systems led to what kind of problems is what I think these metrics enabled.
Great. That's Thank you for that. It's interesting. Um, let's take another turn, a little more general question, but I think for engineering manager, this is important to understand. Tell me a little bit about your leadership style.
So my leadership style is a lot more, I would say, growth and mentoring focused. So I am very invested in my team growth, mentoring and empowering them. Uh,
Mm,
and I'm generally able to grow my teams well, is because I also like to have a good uh, vision for the team, and kind of set ambitious goals, and try to drive the big bets, so to say. Now that doesn't mean that I don't care for the immediate goals or the short term goals, but generally speaking, if these immediate term goals or the short term goals can become building blocks to these long term goals. That's how I generally try to get the uh, set or structure my organizations around those kind of philosophies. I think I've been pretty successful in that, in terms of growing a lot of people, also getting a lot of the big things achieved.
So, excuse me, balancing between short and long-term goals. How do you keep your team accountable to the goals that you set for them?
So in terms of accounting, I think each engineer has the kind of goals set for themselves, and then there's constant feedback that I use with them. If I see them doing something that they shouldn't, I would make sure that they get that feedback during the one-on-ones and other places. There's generally a lot of the reporting that different engineers have for the different projects they own. I kind of review that and make sure that the weekly status reports and other mechanisms that we have in play in terms of tracking projects, those are done. I also kind of am very passionate about operational excellence. I kind of always make sure that each engineer takes the responsibility of making sure that they have enough goals around operational excellence, and they are kind of continuously improving our systems. They are not just doing the business projects and all that productivity, whether it's in terms of their how many lines of code they shipped or how much code review and code review effectiveness they have had. Those are the things I track. And if there is feedback needed, I make sure that I don't wait for the end of the year to give them this feedback. I make sure they get it as and when things happen, so that they have a chance to course correct.
Yeah, sounds good. That sounds good. Um, what drew you to engineering management? Um, from my own experience, some engineers never want to touch management and want to be ICs or independent contributors, and some move into the EM track. What brought you to the EM track?
uh, I think I was a reluctant entry to engineering management, I would say. It took me some time to like managing people. Uh,
Yeah.
my first few, I would say at least months, was more about uh, because I was very good as an IC. I just thought that that would be a better way to just help more people, and kind of impart that knowledge and impart that skills that I had gained as an IC,
Mm.
to be able to kind of spread to a much bigger team much more easily. That's how I started it. But then I also learned over a period of time that engineering management is not like just technical knowledge. There's a lot more to it, and some of those I
Yeah.
learned over a period of time. I don't think I learned it in on day one, or I knew what I was getting into on day one. But I started enjoying it. There was a time when I also started managing managers, but the more important thing was always about uh, I still had that fundamental desire that I should grow people, and that's kind of always kept me much more motivated.
Mm. That's nice to hear. Yeah, I'm sure it was a learning process to become the engineering manager you are. So this takes me, I think, to our last question. Um, looking to the future, what are you looking for in your next role?
So from the next role, I think it's being able to solve complex and ambiguous problems, and along the way, mentor and empower my teams to solve these kind of problems, and lend that experience of people management and having solved a lot of complex ambiguous problems, just be able to use those skills and experience to grow more people, I would say.
Raghu, thank you for taking the time today. Really enjoyed discussing your projects with you and your leadership style. I think this is a good time to take a breath and reflect, and then we can get into some interview feedback so you
Sure.
can perform at your best when the interview comes.
Sure. Sounds good.
Cool. A lot of great things I'm noticing. Um, I liked how you kept things brief,
Hmm.
and you got to the point. I think that's important. You um, you didn't use a lot of jargon, right?
Right.
And I think that's really important. A lot of people use a lot of acronyms that go unexplained or a lot of industry jargon. And even when you're speaking to a hiring manager at another company, it's best to leave that out. And you did a great job doing that. So keep doing that. I felt like your stories were constructed well in the star format, the situation, action, and result. Um, I felt like your personal edge and your differentiation was there. I think we can work on that a little bit more. I'll get into that in a bit. Um, your timing and like I said, the length of your responses was good. You want to keep things to 2 to 3 minutes,
Okay.
um, and remember that you know keep doing that, and remember that there's a lot of new information coming to the interviewer, even if
Right.
they're an experienced engineering manager or product manager or hiring manager or whatever. There's still a lot of new information coming, not just the words said, but the communication style and a whole bunch of things that factor in. So I think keep doing that. um, some things to work on, I would say: lead with a headline, right?
Okay.
So, what are you I'm most proud of ABC project, and I'm proud of it because of these three things,
Got
right?
it.
Lead with an impactful headline, and then you'll be able to back it up with more detail.
Right.
Um, and that holds true for all the questions. Like, what's my leadership style is this, or we had a conflict, and this was the conflict, right?
Got it.
Um, it's kind of like reading the newspaper. You read the headlines or reading the Apple News. Okay, newspaper is fine. Nobody reads newspapers anymore. But reading the Apple News, right? I read Apple News. I read the headlines, and if I'm interested, I dig in, right? So I can
Yes.
get the gist of it from the top. So I think that will really help drive home what you want the interviewer to remember about you. And that's another key thing: is keep in mind what you want the hiring manager, the HR recruiter, whomever you're speaking with, the team. What's one thing you want them to remember? But hopefully it's more than one. But what's one thing, right, that you want them to remember about you? What's going to make you
Right.
stand out? Because
Yeah.
honestly, a lot of projects sound similar, right?
Yeah.
A lot
Yeah.
of them do. And the STAR framework, or the SAR, depending on who you ask, but the situation, task, action, result framework is very pervasive. So we're
Right.
all we're all structuring our answers that way, and that's fine. That's a good idea. Keep doing that. But what makes you stand out? What makes you different, right? What's your personal edge? Okay.
Right.
What do you want them to remember? Right. Leave them with, like, oh, okay, Raghu said this thing that really resonated with me.
Hmm.
Right. Um, let's see. What else can I offer here? One thing you can do for practice. Let's get into some things you can do for practice. Is write down your stories.
Sure.
Right. There's plenty of prompts out there, like the ones I gave today. Right.
Yeah.
Project you're proud of, your leadership style, conflict resolution. Um, Sometimes they ask, how do you work with engineering? But that's more on the product management side. But write down your stories, keep them at about 300 words,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
And your stories, okay, here's something you can take it to the next level. So write down your stories, read them back out loud, and ask yourself, are these the tasks that I did? Is this a very tactical response? Or is
Right.
it more a why it matters response, right?
Hmm.
Obviously, there has to be some, right? Clearly, has to be some detail. Like, I worked at this company, I had this role, this is the thing we worked on. The tactical bit is important, but is that the bulk of the response,
Right. Yeah.
or is the why it matters the bulk? That's where where it becomes memorable, in my opinion. is,
Got
why this mattered. This mattered for the business because engineers, I'm just going to make this up, right? Engineers were
sure.
taking three days to run unit testing, which seems crazy, but
Mm,
whatever it is, like operationally, the team was less efficient than I know that they could have been. And this was impacting our ability to deliver on new features and new products, or to land a big customer, right? That sales was really pushing for, or some other business impact or operational impact, right? The why
mm,
it matters will be very, very memorable in these behavioral stories,
right.
and always include your role. I will, and say it very plainly. I
Yeah.
was the manager leading the team on this project, and I had 7 people, and da 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 da,
Right.
the basics, right?
Yeah.
Which I was able to get through your story. It wasn't completely missing, but make that dead clear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Very clear.
Yeah.
Um, um, so yeah, the why it matters. I think that's about it. I think that there's a lot of good things to work on, but again, write down your stories and say them out loud.
Yes.
These are pretty typical behavioral type questions. They want to. It's the tell me about yourself isn't tell me about yourself directly. It's
Yeah.
tell me why I should consider and hire you for this role. How are you going to solve my problem for me as
Right.
a director, a team lead, a VP, or whatever?
Right.
Um, how are you going to, perform as an independent manager and help a team maintain and retain a team to
Right.
not only be productive but also excuse me, happy, right?
Right. Yeah.
And reduce churn, right? Sometimes you bring in a manager and churn happens. We don't, they're worried about things, right? They're worried
Correct.
about team morale and all that. And that's why they ask these tell me about yourself questions, these behaviorals. So
Yeah.
there's a hidden meaning beneath that
Yeah.
kind of generic sounding tell me about yourself. But yeah, I think that's about all the feedback I have.
Sounds good. I think
Um,
this is very valuable feedback, Josh. Thank you so much.
so thank you for your time today, Raghu. This was great. It's really great to learn all about you and your what you're looking for, and your work history, and the projects you've worked on, your leadership style. So again, thank you for meeting with me today. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.